One of their popes quit the church, broke into the church building, tried to rob it, and got stabbed in the chest. In 2016, a man named Ginés Jesus Hernandez was rushed to a Spanish hospital with severe stab wounds. He was wearing black clothing, a ski mask, and carrying a knife. Just 2 years earlier, followers knew him by a different name. His name was His Holiness Pope Gregory XVIII, the supreme leader of a secretive, apocalyptic empire and hidden behind 30-foot walls in the southern part of Spain. So the question is, how does a devout Catholic end up obeying a man who rewrote the Bible, who literally claimed that Hitler was a saint and said that Jesus came down from heaven and personally crowned him the Pope? Today we dive into this church called the Palmarian Church, or cult really, that has convinced these people in this area that they are the right true church, and has now caused people to lose their families, and even has a person in the name as their pope leave the church, realize that it's a fraud, try to rob his things back, and ends up in jail stabbed in the chest. Today we're diving into El Palmar de Troya, or known as the Palmarian Catholic Church. So welcome to the Doctrine. My name is Joshua Rosa, and I'm your host for this podcast. And we're diving into this particular cult, the Palmarian Catholic Church. And we need to understand that no one ever sets out to join a cult. No one looks at these things and says, wow, this is really awesome. Let me give them all of my money and all of my obedience and all of my life. Often, what charismatic leaders do is that they control people and make them believe that they are right. And they show certain things that seem divine, or seem that they have some deep understanding that most people would want. So if they are good at what they do, if they're again, the charismatic speaker that makes somebody feel like they belong part of this thing, often the people that follow them don't really question the absurdities that they're saying, or don't question the difference. Now, to be clear, this is not a overnight thing. Some of these things have developed over time. Sometimes, yes, there are cult leaders who just kind of show up and people just follow them, but no one sets out to say, I want to follow a cult. I want to give them all of my money. I want to give them everything that I have. And there's no difference with this particular church, right? There's no difference with this particular cult. That people are joining this, or a part of it, and some of them just grew up in it. So they've been indoctrinated from a very long time to not question the things that don't make sense, not question why do we give everything, not question why are we not allowed to speak to people outside of this place, because they don't want you to question these things. And that's the entire point. So at the origin of this place, at the origin of this cult, there was a vision and there was bait. This particular church, it's an offshoot. It comes from the origins of the Catholic Church, but then leaves really quickly. So it's not actually a part of the Catholic Church. It never has been. It was never actually okayed by any of the popes. But what happens in Spain in 1968, Vatican II happens. And it's this big reform within the church, with they're trying to reach more people, to have more of a missionary language, to go out and evangelize the world. That's really the whole purpose of Vatican II. This is big council with a bunch of bishops, and they make all these decisions. But there's something that's happening here, that there's a lot of people who feel alienated, a lot of people who have stuck to tradition and the Latin language and the Latin mass and all these things, and have wanted to keep that tradition. And this community is no different. A moment happens where 4 young girls claim that they see the vision of the Virgin Mary in El Palmar de Troya. And they make this claim, and tons of people begin to believe it. Now, the church itself, the Catholic Church, never said yes, never agreed to this, right? They never said, okay, yeah, these are valid. They, in fact, questioned a lot of things, which is natural, which they should do. Whenever there's something spiritual or something of that divine nature, you should question, you should check and make sure that there is no human manipulation or interpretation, or things are controlled. They did the right thing. And that was an issue for them, because there's a moment where somebody found an opportunity to capitalize. And here's where we get Clemente Domínguez y Gomez, an obscure insurance clerk with the flair of the dramatic. He was very, very flamboyant, and he was very, very good at drawing people in. Clemente claimed that he had his own visions. He said that he bled from stigmata on command, and positions himself as the ultimate defender of the true Catholic Church. Now, stigmata, for those of you that don't know, are the wounds of Jesus, and it's supposed to be a big blessing. But there's a saint, Saint Padre Pio, who suffered with stigmata, and his hands would bleed, and the nails on his feet would bleed, and the lashes would appear on his body, and even to the extent of physically fighting the devil himself. So Clemente making this claim that he had stigmata, claiming that this was a blessing that the Lord gave him. And again, could very easily, if it's not verified, could have very easily been fraud, been lied to. So people believed him. When they saw these wounds, they thought, well, no, this man must have some divine assignment. And this is like any cult leader. What they do is that they create something that creates this relationship with people where they see this and think, wow, you are divine. Like, there is an assignment, and I want to know what you know. So people don't question that. They follow him. They see the wounds, they see the slashes, they see all these things, and they quickly believe that this man is truly who he is. Now, mind you, he has no faith background, no religious affiliation. He's just a member of the community, but also an insurance salesman and also an actor, which that's also a big side effect here. So Clemente tricks an elderly Vietnamese archbishop to legally ordaining him as bishop. So in the year 1975, through 1978, he reaches out to a particular archbishop and he convinces him of the things that are happening there. And this archbishop already had issues with the church. He's already falling off, already has his side things going on, but he sees this opportunity to be a part of something, or even some believe that it was corruption. And each their own. I'm not here to comment on that. We're only talking about why people join cults and emphasis of this cult specifically. But he goes on and he ordains him as a priest. So he is technically, if you know anything about the Catholic Church, illicitly but validly ordained. He's a priest, right? He didn't go through seminary, didn't really take any teachings or education, but on the things that he was given and the claim of the divine and the special assignments that he has himself. Now, when Pope Paul VI dies in 1978, Clement claims that Jesus himself came down from heaven and physically appeared to him in a vision and crowned him as Pope Gregory XVII. So this claim is that Jesus himself comes down and says to him, you are the next pope. And naturally, the people in this community are already elated with him. They already love everything he's doing, and they're just amazed of this hugely divine man as far as they claim or they believe, and they are going to believe everything he says. So that Jesus himself came down and gave you a crown and said you're Pope, well, that's not far-fetched, especially if we believe everything else. There's a hook that happens. He didn't invent a brand new religion. He didn't change anything out of the air. He just took something that was already familiar to these people in this community and said that the Lord wants to save it through me. And that is one of the most common tricks that a cult's going to use, because it's going to find something that you relate to and love dearly and then emphasize that. They're going to sit here and say that this is something that's natural to you and that you love and care for, and I'm here to make sure that that thing stays with you. People desire to be in things that are familiar. They desire to have their ideas vindicated. They desire to have their hopes and wants confirmed. They want these things to be sure. And if you already have a devout relationship where you are choosing to believe that God is this and believing in all these things and traditions that you've been taught and all these powerful things, if a person comes within the confines of that same thing and is able to convince you that they are in fact divinely sent, and you already have that, it's an easy way to indoctrinate someone. And what happens in that moment, in that instance of people seeing him do these things and these things that are happening in the world at a war and all the problems happening everywhere, they then see a place for them to be a part of something. So instability creates a place for people to not look at what's wrong with them, to not look at what could potentially go wrong, to not look at anything else, but find a place of security. And these people who joined this cult and the families that indoctrinated their kids and joined them deeper were looking for that stability. They wanted something of the divine that kept in with the traditions that they already had. The compound and the coercion. Once Clement established the papacy in Palmar, he built a massive, heavily fortified cathedral compound and began serving his followers from the outside world. So as he establishes this place, these are the three things that he does to create control. He rewrites the Bible. He calls it the Palmarian Bible. Clement rewrote the Holy Bible entirely, editing out passages and adding custom prophecies and legitimizing his power. He took scripture and said that God, and mind you, already, if Jesus himself came down from heaven and gave you a crown, you have a lot of authority. That's a very tough one. So the people that believe that already are going to believe that he's able to change this. So he rewrites the Bible. He changes certain things and adds prophecies to these moments. So the people that are following the scripture are now going to believe that these prophecies are coming to be. Next thing is financial exploitation, and he finds wealthy donors, one of them specifically being the Baroness Castillo Chalvar, who essentially gave the main seeds and funds into the church itself. So he convinced her, because of her Catholic faith, that this was the most traditional thing for them to do. And she had all this money sown into this place. Eventually, realizing how much of a scam it was and how much of a fraud, she cut them off, but the damage had already been done. The money that had taken in had helped them already build and establish the church building that they created. So they created a place that brought all these people to them and added countless other people who believed in tradition of the church from Switzerland and different places to donate to this funding. Now, again, this moves things. We know that money moves the world. So we have income coming into this cult. What's going to happen is going to give it a little bit more legitimacy. When people see that things are happening, they believe, well, okay, maybe this is divinely organized, not realizing that they just have a fantastic, charismatic speaker who's very good at speaking to people's pockets. He knew what would say and what would work for them to donate. And when they realized how bad this was and completely stopped, it was too late. The people had joined, the families already had dedicated their whole lives. There were families who were giving all of their money into this church. And a big side effect, a big takeaway from cults is that when you join, the leader receives the income. So what's happening is that the families are giving their entire estates dedicated to the church. Nothing is being passed down to generations. Everything is being given back. And that's a huge sign of a cult. If you have to give all of your income to a place and they're keeping it, that's a cult. You have no access to your finances. You have no way to leave. You have no way to move. Everything is being dedicated, and people were leaving their estates in their will completely to the church. Now, it's important to note that Clemente was living his best life. Even as quote-unquote Pope, he was actually out partying and drinking and living an extremely, flamboyant life. No judgment on anyone does whatever they want to do, but he was doing things that church actually condemned. They condemned the homosexual lifestyle, and he was known to actually have multiple partners that were men. And again, do what you want to do, but if you're going to condemn that as a church, then you have to be very firm on that thing. So he was taking the money that was coming into the church and living the life that you would think a movie star would live. And that's really what he was. And then ultimately eradicating their free will. The people that were a part of this church, and to this very day, till 2026, they have a smaller offset. The numbers are estimated between 2,000 and 4,000 people total in the world that are part of this particular cult, which is, again, it's a very small cult, but it's extremely, extremely effective in terms of convincing people to give their whole lives to it. So the people that are still in this cult have to adhere to extreme dress rules. They have to adhere to the superiority complex of the church itself. Now, to be clear, yes, there is a hierarchical standard, but it's very different when there's a hierarchy in the sense of the divine and a hierarchy in the sense of needing authority over people. And that's kind of what happens here. The people of this church are very strict with their prayer schedule, with total isolation, with the way they can speak and act and do anything in the world. Even their social media platforms, which, again, I've had my little arguments with them on theological stuff, but that's a me thing. And they are not allowed to participate in social media that is not regulated by the church itself. Literally a cult. And when people control what you do or say, and you don't have the freedom to question it, or you don't have the freedom to learn more, you don't have the freedom to bring up your own quorums, and even then, even if you're corrected on them, still have the freedom to do it, that is a problem. So we fast forward into the 2000s, and this is where things really fall apart. Now, again, they have their own church in the Palmarian Church, and we hear that Pope Clement, that he dies himself, and we have a couple more other people that fill in the seats, but this is where it gets really interesting. We get to Pope Gregory XVIII, or Ginés Hernandez, and in 2016, he advocates his seat. He leaves as their Pope, and he flees the compound in his BMW and goes into national news to declare it was all a financial tax scam from day one. So keep in mind, this is their Pope, and he chooses to run away in his BMW because he knew that, he got to take something with him. And as he flees, he goes to the news and says, this is all a scam. It's been a scam from the very, very beginning, and all the finances have been kept there, and everything has been kept there. Now, he, again, was living in the church, so they controlled everything. They controlled everything else that they had tangibly access to, or at least digitally, rather, because tangible things was his BMW that he was able to drive away in. But he runs away and leaves this particular place. He tells everybody how much of a scam it is, and the church freaks out naturally, because if you have built a cult that's established for so long as creating one person as a complex, and that person then decides to finally grow a conscience and say this is wrong and leaves, they have to go into saving mode. Till this very day, if you go on their website, which I won't say the website, we're not here to bash or demean them, we're just showcasing what a cult is, but if you go on their website, they still to this very day have a dedication to him on how much he was actually tormented by the devil. They would make the claim, and this is what a cult does, right? When there's ever any infallible act within the top of leadership, what they'll do is that they will say, well, this person never was fully invested, but you elected him as Pope. You said that the Lord divinely gave you this authority and you picked him. So where's the problem? They said that he was actually being tormented by demons and by the devil, and that he was actually wrong and lying, and he was deceived and left. 2018, a couple years later, Ines and his wife, they scale a 30-foot cathedral wall wearing ski masks to steal cash from the vault. A fight breaks out, and a current priest stabs him in the chest, and they're arrested. Insane. He climbs into the church, knows where the money is, so goes to steal the money. Now, naturally, I'm not condemning or condoning stealing or robbing churches. I mean, this is a cult, but whatever. We're not condoning anyone to do anything crazy. But they had all his money and everyone's money, and his goal was ultimately just to get, at least I'd like to think, at least his stuff back. And understand this, that the belief of these people is that God infallibly made them their church, and every pope that was picked, that was God's infallible word. So when the infallible voice of God gets caught jumping the fence in a ski mask and crowbar and tries to rob the place, there's just something, a little weird about it. To replace him, they elect Pope Peter III, and this man is now their leader of their current church from 2016 to this current time frame. If you ever see this church, they're very, very, very big on decor and the grandeur, gold, and carrying their Pope Peter on a special seat, and doing all these things that is just insanely over too much. It's just too much. For the better lack of words, it just is too much. And they will continually bash the Catholic Church. Their ultimate goal is to tell people how wrong that is and how right they are. And it is sad because the people that are in this place, they don't really have much of an out. Most of these people live in that community. They live in Palmar. So for them, this is everything they've ever known. The kids have grown in there. And yes, their numbers have dwindled, right? They're, again, closer to 2,000 people, maybe even a little less, actually. And they are presently there, but it's a cult nonetheless. There is one supreme leader who controls everything, and he's never wrong and cannot be questioned because he's infallible and, according to him, sent from Jesus himself. They are completely engulfed in their doctrine and their belief, and they cannot question anything. They cannot talk to people outside of that place. They can never question the leadership itself. They are then tied in with all of their finances to the point where people leave inheritance and leave their whole families behind just to give money to this place. And there's a lot of scandal, the belief that this church has, taken people out of the picture, if that makes sense. There's tons of things that, whether proven or not proven, is all indicative of a cult. And my biggest thing, again, is that people join these things not because they are deceived. I mean, they are deceived, but it's not the sense that they're looking to be deceived. It's the sense that they're looking to belong. They're looking for something that ties them and roots them to the identity that they've always had, their tradition they've always had, the people that they've always grown around, the thing that is real about them. And it's sad because we all want that. That is a natural inclination for all humans to belong, no matter how many scandals are, how crazy this storyline is of a man pandering and coming in as an actor and insurance salesman, and then creating his own wounds, and then convincing people that God himself came down and crowned him as a pope, and then creating his own church and his own bishops, and then people following and dying, and then the next pope breaking in and getting stabbed in the chest and leaving. No matter how crazy the storyline is, the people are the most important thing. The people who are deceived and who are sitting in this not knowing that they have a way out. And the people that grew up, it breaks my heart, because a lot of the videos they post, again, we live in a digital era, so we see this often, and there's a lot of kids, little kids that they have, and they're kind of encouraged to grow these huge families, because the more people you have, the bigger your church is. These little kids that are going to be indoctrinated in the same thing, to think that they cannot access the outside world, to think that there is nothing more, that everything they have to know is this place, and they have to go through the torment of the things they have to go through. It breaks our hearts, should break our hearts. It's not that these people set out to be in a cult. It's that these people are looking for something to belong to. They were looking for a community that kept true to their tradition. They were looking for something that showed who they were and allowed them to be fully in it. And if you're struggling with that, you belong where you are loved, not where you are used. It's one of the craziest cults, and I'm so interested and fascinated by all these things. So we'll be diving into some more, even crazier cults as we go along in this podcast. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your time. And we'll see you on the next one.